Mitali, India versus Australia in a semi-final. Worst kept secret in women's cricket is you have to beat Australia, and they are a standard above most other teams. So I want to start with that. Given that we know so much about how hard it is to beat Australia, they are the best team in the world. Is there a psychology involved here where players are also intimidated when it comes to Australia?
I think it's because they have this. For years, they've been that dominant team in women's cricket, and year after year, they qualify for the finals of whether it's T20 World Cup or a One Day World Cup, and you expect them to. So that's sort of a reputation they carry. And but then with the exposure of WPL, I think things have really changed for the Indian women's cricket.
I want to go more in detail with that. So, can you relate to, say, 2017 and 2022, the two World Cups that you were most recently part of, where it was like a little different before an Australia game, where you felt like you know that these guys are going to be tougher than other teams to beat. And now, since then, the fact that you yourself have spent time in franchises, you actually seen these Australian players. When you get to interact with them, know them, does that humanize the player to a point where you're not as intimidated against them in a contest?
I think it does help if you spend some time in and around them, especially during WPL, because the players then get to know what they think, how their mindset is, what their preparation is, and certain situations while playing in the same team. How do they approach those situations? Do they have a backup plan, or how do they take it forward from there? So I think these experiences definitely has helped the current players, because when I've seen them play in the bilateral series before the World Cup, I think India won a game and did give a good fight in the other game as well. The last third,
The one in Delhi,
yes,
yeah.
and that was a very high scoring on that ground. And at one point, I felt India was cruising cruising towards winning that game, the chase that they started with. So maybe I also feel that Australia could be having those this doubts when it comes to the knockouts, especially if they're facing India.
Okay, that's the other psychology of it. Whether Australia, if you give them a list of opponents, they actually don't want India more than others. I'll come to that in a moment. But give me a little more, perhaps your own experience, an example of you would have played against Beth Mooney or an Ash Gardner, and then you sort of see them as part of your own team. How did that kind of change how you look at some of these formidable Australian players?
Well, it also gives you insights as to how they think, when it comes to certain games. Like I personally feel that everybody should have at least 3-4 plans when they walk onto the ground, and there are certain players who stick to the plan irrespective whether it works or not, and there are players who are quite adaptive to changing the plan on the field. So you understand how Australians work in and around that, whether they quickly how quickly they change their plans on the field, the game awareness, because when it comes to especially the bowling unit, they quickly read the wicket and they spread the word around. They don't take time for the bowler to come and then get into rhythm, find the spots that they need to. So this is what I realized being with the franchise team for the first couple of seasons.
So do you sense that players that played with you and are still part of this, they would also look at an Australian opposition slightly differently than how they did maybe even at the last World Cup in 2022?
Well, I think now there is this thought that it's possibility to beat this Australian side despite all the strengths that they boast about, the deep batting lineup, the bowling attack they have, the number of all-rounders in their playing 11, and still with all of those strengths you still can beat this Australian side, is what the thought process is in the current Indian setup, because of obviously the number of games they've won in this calendar year, the form of the players, and how they have built on it.
What's a team environment like ahead of an Australia semi-final, which you would have experienced in 17, but even ahead of playing Australia in like a major knockout? We've seen T20 knockout games as well. How is it different from other big games?
Well, when it comes to the World Cups and when you're in the knockouts, you need to have that one good day on that day to get into the finals. And even Australians know that, they have to come with the best on a knockout game. Otherwise, you're packing your bags. So for India, I know for a fact that, I'm sure they will be all positive and take a lot of strength from the group game that they've played in Vizag. And for a fact that, they were able to post 300, because the press con, I heard Alisa Healy say that, not every day that you chase 300. So that itself gives you a little bit into the thinking that some point they felt this runs were a lot more.
Okay, let's visualize situations against Australia. One of the things we almost get is even if you have them 5 or 6 down, you don't feel like they're under pressure. They fight back. And that we've seen from Ash Gardner, we've seen from Australia against Pakistan when they were 8-9 down as well. What's the one thing this Indian team, Harmanpreet Kaur in the field, will have to keep in mind if you find Australia on top or if you find Australia in trouble? Because we know this is one team that you just cannot think, oh, we've got them.
Well, one thing which is going well for the Indian team is that the spinners have done well. But the fact that this venue has least spin that it offers from the surface. So what would be the bowling unit getting into the semi-finals? Second is that you need to get early breakthroughs in the first 10 overs. That's very important when you're playing Australia because they depend on the start Alyssa Healy and Phoebe Litchfield give. And if you go by the last couple of games, you know that Ellis Perry is also not among runs. So it does give a little bit hope that that middle order still, with quality bowlers, can be curtailed. The runs can be curtailed in middle overs if you put pressure on them. But if they get a partnership going, then that's a trouble. You need to have bowlers who can break those partnerships.
So what should be India's best balance? Because we think after the New Zealand game, if it's only going to be 5 frontline bowlers, that is a cause for concern. Australia might take down one of the main bowlers. What should be India's balance here, in your view?
Well, see, it can either be like 3 seamers, 2 spinners, and you can expect Harman to pitch in, roll her arm as a spinner to sort of get those 4-5 overs from a 6th bowler in case if you require those overs in the middle overs and you want to keep Deepti Sharma's overs in the end, you need to fill in that gap in the middle overs. So it could be Harman. And if you want to go in with 3 spinners and 2 seamers, then you'll have to find a way to use those seamers, one of them at least in the death overs, because Renuka is very good with a new ball, but she's not as effective with the old ball. Will you keep her overs or finish her overs in the first 10? And Kranti God, how do you going to use it?
What is a bigger concern, if I can call it, for this Indian team? That they only have 5 bowlers, or that if you have to add a 6th bowler, if you bring Amanjot Kaur in, it has to be for a specialist batter. And I would like to think the only specialist batter now, with the kind of form Jemmy showed in the New Zealand game, is a Harleen Deol. But then if you find yourself a wicket down, these are all the kinds of plans I'm sure you think of. So what is the right way to approach such a big game against Australia?
Well, if you go by the right approach, India should stick to the combination that they feel that is their strength, because sometimes the psychological thing is also very important. You need to feel confident with the 11 that you're getting in, irrespective of what the world thinks of the combination, 6th bowler, or you want an all-rounder in, you want to swap it with a batter. But everything aside, what the team feels confident, having a batter, an extra batter, and they can sort of let go the 6th bowler and manage somehow, or do they need an all-rounder there so that they can back it up with few overs and batting depth?
Knowing Harmanpreet Kaur on this team, do you sense that becomes a harder decision when it's in Australia? If there was someone else in the opposition, maybe you would have still said, right, we can take a punt on one batter light. But do you sense that India will go in with the extra cushion of batting because that gives them a better chance?
I think so, because entire this year, if you see, whenever they've posted 300, they've always gone with an extra batter because they feel like, there is still batting to come. Even say, for example, you have an early wicket in the form of Smriti, then you know that you still have batters. Which I think against England they felt, despite that's the best combination. I think we sort of let that match go, couldn't chase down. But that was the best combination, and they still feel after that they got in an extra batter. So it sort of reflects that they feel they need to have batters.
How do you put pressure on Australia during a game?
I think what Australia will feel the pressure is the opening batters. If our opening batters get the start, if Smriti gets going, they know that she has the ability to sort of stick in there, and the entire batting, India's batting will revolve around her, which we've seen, as I spoke about the third one-day bilateral series when they were chasing. And going by Australia, whenever it is a knockouts at the big games, they always like to put runs on the board and put the pressure back onto the other team.
Do you sense that this is, with the youngish group of bowlers that India have now, Kranti, Shri Charni, there isn't as much baggage as, say, her senior players who've played so many years? Is that a good thing? Or sometimes you think, we need experience in a semi-final. But how do you view India's almost relative rawness or inexperience versus such an experienced Australian team? Can it
Well,
be an advantage?
it can be an advantage because one thing is that you don't want as a player to get overwhelmed with the occasion that you're playing a semi-final in front of your home crowd. People are watching, everybody's tuning in, and then you're not up to it. So I think it's an advantage that there is no vein of that experience once one carries. Yes, the load then shifts a lot more on the experienced lot in the team. That is, say, Deepti Sharma, Sneh Rana, who all have played World Cups in the past. Renuka Thakur, all of them have an added job to do then.
Okay, now I want to ask you this. Are India's chances better in a semi-final than, say, if they were to play Australia in a final? Is the focus and intensity different in a semi in comparison to a final?
Well, it does because you know that this is one time that you play good. You're getting to play, getting into the final. Then again, you can sort of plan for that big event, big day. You have a couple of days, but to make it there, you really need to cross semi-finals, and it definitely will play in the players' minds.
Like Australia don't lose finals. That's where I'm coming from. But Australia have lost a semi-final.
Yes.
And even when we look at the T20 World Cup in 2023, the one where Harmanpreet caused bad got stuck. Say in comparison to the T20 World Cup where they blew India away in the final, even though India beat them in Australia in 2020. Yeah. I'm just trying to look at how Australia play the occasion so much better in a final. But in a semi-final, it's almost like you're playing a game. Does that make sense? You're just playing another game in the tournament?
Well, it can never be like, you're just playing another game in the tournament. There is always, it always plays in the player's mind. Yeah, we are playing a semi-final, we are playing a final. It's easier said than done to think that it's just another opponent, another game. So when it comes to Australia, yes, they do know the importance of semi-finals, and losing out on the T20 World Cup probably will sort of push them a lot more harder this time to get into the finals of the ODI World Cup.
Because I'm going to go into that. I know I'm going to sound foolish asking this question, but I'm not going to say are Australia weaker, but are they less strong or less invincible than a lot of other ICC events in recent years? Do you think, this Australian side?
I would say, less invincible is the right way to put it. Then the
more
rest,
beatable, like more of a chance to beat.
Because this tournament itself, we've seen a couple of games where the middle order was tested. Yes, though they bat deep, but you know that the top order can be bundled out. You can get their wickets for a smaller total on the board. That teams who've got quality bowlers, who've been backed with good fielding, were able to put that pressure on Australia. So it's not like they are unbeatable.
Bat first if you're India, because that's been the template of this team under Harman and Amol Mazumdar. Let's bat first, let's get to 300, maybe 330. There's a chance to get 350, 360 at Vizag. That didn't happen. But is that India's best chance still, rather than a chase against Australia?
Well, see, I think yes, because it's a big game for both teams, and Australia also plays that way. Important games, they usually would like to put score on the board and not take the pressure of chasing. And I'm sure from the last game in the league, when India has put on that 300 plus runs, it nearly went till the end. So India will be looking at, let's put a good total on the board, and if you're going with an extra batter, you should probably, that would be the right way to look at.
How big a game is this for Harmanpreet Kaur, the captain, in the field, to get her bowling changes right, to make sure that fielders are in the right places? India set pretty good standards in the field, but then suddenly when Australia comes the opposition, like I saw in that bilateral series, catches go down, run-outs happen. Can you make sense of that? Whether a team that's otherwise of a good standard, somehow, is it just pressure against Australia where they make mistakes happen?
Well, I think it is just the expectation of to being at your best against this side, because they demand nothing less than that. Yeah. And
so what is the captain's role when that is the kind of mood and vibe? Catch goes up in the air, I have to catch it, this is Alisa Healy, or this is
when
Phoebe
we talk
Litchfield's
about
catch.
the semi-finals, I think the expectation is a lot more on the Australians, because they've not made it in the T20 World Cup, and so they will be looking, and everybody knows Australia is the strongest team. We've spoken a lot on it, so they carry that reputation, whereas India have made it to the semi-finals, don't carry the baggage. I would say don't think like, okay, we are playing at home. Just approach it as, you're playing in England or you're playing in Australia. You don't have anything to lose. You just go there and play your best. Australia has lots to lose.
Yeah. So do you sense the way this World Cup's gone for India, it might actually be a good thing that they haven't won 6 or 7 out 7 games, or they've had to really be put under pressure against New Zealand, have to suffer defeats. And do you sense that will prepare them better in a way for the semi-final?
Well, you can always look back and take the positives, but you always have to start, because every game you'll have to start from the ground level. You have to start with a good momentum, whether you're bowling, you're batting. Everything starts from zero again.
One bit of advice to this team, if you'd like to give it, from your learnings of having played Australia, knowing what this Indian team, can happen to an Indian team in a big semi-final. I'm sure it's going to be a packed crowd. But what's the key advice or the pre-team talk that you'd like to remind them of?
Well, I would just tell them that you've made it to the semi-finals. So it's just that one game, but do not put too much pressure that if you play well, you qualify, you want to play the finals. Everybody does. But right now, today is a day that you have to be at your best. Just not your physical, your skill, but even your mental preparation has to be the best. There will be things going our way, may not go our way during the game, but the awareness, if you're present, the game awareness is important against the best sides, because the game gives you moments where you can shift the momentum on you. If you're not aware, then you let that go, and Australia is very good at that. So if you want to beat Australia, you have to pick those moments.
What's your gut feeling?
Well, my gut feeling says it's going to be a tight game.
And the chances of India to prevail in a tight game? 50-50, 60-40, 51-49?
I think I'll give Australia 60, India 40.
Okay, Mithali, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.